The golden rule, Andy, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? Now, you mentioned that 2019 change in the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, when they made gold a tier 1 asset. Explain the significance of that, because that was one of the first points that I think really started to trigger this process in your mind that this de-dollarization trend is really going to accelerate.
Yeah, well, since World War II, there's been one tier 1 asset by central bank standards, U.S. Treasuries and dollars. And in 2017, when we saw the Bundesbank lead the charge to repatriate their gold from the New York Fed, slowly thereafter, the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, they all said, give us our gold back from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, and then quietly went on a buying spree where in 2018, the following year, those same banks bought more gold as a group than they did in the 60 years previously combined. Those numbers have continued to increase ever since, but in 2019, the BIS said, oh, by the way, gold is now tier 1, and that's a huge deal when you put all of this together. And look where we are right now. Countries are continuing to do the same thing. In fact, what we saw, what did we see? The Bank of India, who just bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year, just in the first 4 months of this year, but they repatriated their gold. They brought it back from the Bank of England. Much of their gold has been sitting there since 1991. They now hold almost all of their gold. We've seen Saudi Arabia and Egypt and a half a dozen African countries just bring all of their gold back from the New York Fed. So not only is gold a tier 1 asset, a riskless asset, if it's a riskless asset, you want to remove counterparty liability. So these countries who understand that it can replace the dollar or the bond market, rather, the treasury, in terms of its status as a reserve, and being recognized by the BIS, they are also removing counterparty risk by taking it back from the Bank of England, which is the same thing as the London Bullion Market Association, and the COMEX, which is the New York Fed. This repatriation is just as important as the accumulation.
Yeah. And in fact, Andy, according to a study by Invesco last year, a substantial share of central banks were concerned about what we saw with sanctions against Russia. And 68% of respondents said that they were keeping reserves at home compared to 50% in 2020. So in 5 years, according to this Invesco survey of repatriation, that figure is expected to rise to 74% of countries repatriating their gold.